new campaign mechanics, and of course check out their Sea People's units. In today's video, to destroy and ruin. I can engage in diplomacy with a faction to trade food for gold, and then swiftly crush them, raising their settlements. Like, how does that make sense at all? I can join the Hittite or Egyptian courts. Like, why would the Sea Peoples join the courts of one of these cultures? The cultures of their new campaign mechanics, we get war spoils, which is literally just like asking Siri where the nearest 5-star restaurant is. Running out of gold, hey, war spoils, where's the nearest major city with gold? Hey, war spoils, where's the nearest city with an elite recruitment pool? It's not like all those things aren't there anyway, it's just you get a little button to click when you want to find out where the...
This video from the Terminator drew some attention to a topic I've touched on here and there across different videos and some of my streams. And the topic is important enough to merit its own video. If you spent virtually any time in the Total War sphere, you may have heard the term faction variety or faction diversity thrown around. It's a messy discussion, more often than not fueled by ignorance or a complete misunderstanding of meaningful faction differentiation. The truth is, you don't need an entirely unique unit roster to differentiate a faction, or a long and convoluted list of faction bonuses. You don't need a larger-than-life character at the head of your faction, replete with all their unique and ill-defined traits and bonuses. I'll jump right into an example of successful faction differentiation to give you an idea of how it can be achieved. The Ikko-Ikki in Shogun 2. At the faction select screen, the major differences are made very clear. They have a unique religion, higher morale Ashigaru units, and an inability to recruit Metsukes. The only faction with such a restriction. The way this information is conveyed to the player is important. Rather than shoving some previously unknown or completely unique mechanic in your face, the game draws on the experience you likely already have to contrast them against the existing factions. Ashigaru are the core of every army composition. Yari Ashigaru in particular will be the lens through which players understand other units as they are made available. Secondly, Metsukes. They are the principal money makers. Every faction seeks to get 5 of them as soon as is feasible, placing them in the richest provinces to wring every last koku from them. Right away, you have a good idea of what you're getting into when you play the Ikko-Ikki. Cash is going to be a lot tighter, at least if you rely on conventional tax income to fund your expansion. The unique Eco-Faith's effects on your gameplay are straightforward and easy to predict, especially if you've played one of the Western factions and dealt with Christianity previously. Whereas most factions can ignore the religious aspect of the game altogether if they so desire, for the Eco, this mechanic is front and center. Especially when you learn that even their most basic temple building spreads their faith to adjacent provinces. At first, you'll feel pressure to expand to the provinces that border multiple provinces, up to around 7 in the most extreme cases, in order to get the most mileage out of each temple. It ties into the lack of Metsuke income, incentivizing you to think just a bit more about giving that build order. And that budget consciousness will draw your attention to another problem. Because the Eco faith is unique to the Eco and no other faction can be converted to it, your temple will be demolished if the province is seized by the enemy. The same consideration has to be made by Christian factions, who are often the minority as well. Except Christian factions still have access to Metsuke, and the extra income can be put to fortifying key areas with upgraded castles and imported matchlock garrisons. That is money that the Eco won't ever have. The picture is coming together. You need to convert provinces, but you won't have the money to hold them. Not yet, at least. That leaves us with a rather novel approach to the game, something that other factions can do and are indeed very capable at, but their higher income may have prevented you from stretching your forces this far, playing the Ikko-Ikki as though it were a horde faction. I start the campaign with no intention of building any forts. I intend to seize them from the AI, but it will be a while till the AI has developed forts to level 3 and above. So how is that even an option? Well, there is one option on the table, and you may have already guessed where I'm going with this. Kyoto. Just one province lies between the Ikko-Ikki and the capital, whose citadel houses 5 buildings and is capable of recruiting 5 experienced Ashigaru units a turn. Unit experience improves the fighting prowess of your units without incurring additional costs, which plays right into the Ikko-Ikki's hand. Kyoto Citadel actually has the worst battle map layout out of the different types, but when combined with a large garrison, it will more than suffice to repulse almost any army composition. I did lose it at some point in my last playthrough to an unusual horde of katana samurai, though it was a very close fight. Anyway, most people will hold off taking Kyoto until they're on the cusp of Realm Divide. That ominous event lurking in the future that you've heard so many scary stories about. What you should know is that Kyoto is, funnily enough, the perfect answer to the eco challenges. A fully upgraded province that you will have to spend pennies in unit upkeep to seize for yourself. A province smack in the center of the map bordering 8 other provinces which can be slowly converted by the temple nestled safely in Kyoto. That last point about conversion matters a lot too, because it allows you to continuously pillage the surrounding areas and leave them to be overrun by rebels while they are getting converted over time, earning you enough money to make up for the Metsuke deficit and then some. And before anyone says, but Realm Divide! As Eco on Legendary, everyone who matters will be at war with you anyway by turn 15, so you might as well harness the power of a fully decked out recruitment hub, leveling the playing field, as they say. Playing the Ikko-Ikki on Legendary is an exercise in weaning yourself off of the tools that you may have become too reliant on. It's about realizing just how far Ashigaru can be pushed. Whether you think the power of Ashigaru is excessive is another discussion, and in turn, realizing just how much of the income you make with other factions is not at all necessary to beating the game. And on the topic of game design, the overarching lesson is that you don't need to feature multiple countries in a Total War game in order for factions to play differently. And you certainly don't need an expansive fantasy world to achieve that either. In the case of Total War Pharaoh, it's frankly quite embarrassing that it can't deliver a compelling Horde faction quote-unquote experience, while a game released in 2011 and set exclusively in Japan manages to do so. There comes a certain point in the campaign where the smoking husk of Japan is embroiled in a tug of war between yourself and the numerous rebellions spawning out of the ashes of your pillaging sprees, in a manner that, intentional on the part of the developers or not, leaves you feeling a bit like Attila the Hun or one of the Khans from the Eurasian steppe.